So I'm Clev Mesado. I'm the Executive Director for the Blockchain Foundation. It is the sister entity to the Blockchain Association. The association is the largest entity for crypto in the industry, representing about 100 companies. I've been working with them for about 3 years, and last year we recognized we needed an arm, a nonprofit arm, to focus exclusively on education. So that's the hat I wear right now. Where was I before? I worked in Congress. I worked for Congresswoman Barbara Lee. I worked for Congresswoman Betty McCollum, who's from Minnesota. Most of you know Barbara Lee. Then I served in the Obama administration. I was a presidential appointee in the Obama administration. I actually served in the Department of Commerce at the Economic Development Administration. Working in Congress, I thought I worked for the federal government. Then I got to the executive branch. Then I really found out what working for the government felt like. That said, it was in 2013, while I was serving in the Obama administration, that I first learned about Bitcoin. Sinclair Skinner introduced me. I helped him with a press release, learned about it, then I saw the movie Dope, and it crystallized it for me. Around 2016, when the conversation opened up beyond Bitcoin, beyond currency, to what are the applications of the technology, I found my space, I found my sweet spot. So it was, how do we use the technology to solve problems? Things like self-sovereign identity brought me here. Intellectual property protections, I was like, yes, that is for me. So I left Washington to go work in crypto. John knows, I was going to build a product on Ethereum. He actually did a whole call with me. I started building logos, published a white paper. Then in December 2017, the worst investing that could happen to crypto happened. December 2017, Bitcoin hit $20,000, and the space has never been the same again. What that did was opened up the regulatory conversation. All of a sudden, the IRS was just like, are these people paying their taxes? Then you had the regulatory agencies said, are those securities? Are those commodities? And then you had Congress saying, well, what kind of legislation do we need to create for this industry? So something that was created to solve problems all of a sudden became a political tool. We started talking about what is the regulatory framework. Why that affects you is because the regulatory framework is code for how do we stop this train? How do we put in rules and roadblocks? How do we conform this rogue industry to look more like traditional finance, to look more like traditional banking, right? And so in 2018, I had to lean back to Washington to start focusing on this. And in leaning back, I found the Blockchain Association, and Kristen Smith was leading it, and we started collaborating because I knew we needed to focus on the Tri-Caucus, the Black Caucus, Hispanic Caucus, Asian Pacific American Caucus. We need to make sure that the people who represent Black and brown people also knew that Black and brown people were building on this space. There are many people who believe that Black people are latecomers to this space. We're just jumping on a bandwagon. We know that's not true, because some of you in this room have been in this space since 2009, since 2010, since 2011, since 2012, since 2013. And the only reason there is adoption, the only reason Black and Latino communities lead national adoption is because of the work that you're doing here. So if Black and Latino communities lead adoption, if we've been in this space since the get-go, why don't you see us at the hearings? You've seen the crypto hearings, right? When they're creating these bills that you hear about, did they consult us? That's a problem, because the reason policy doesn't work is because Washington wants to use the same rules from the 1930s, the same approaches to regulate a new industry. So that's why now, it used to be a time when you didn't need a bank account to buy crypto, but now you do. All of the policies we've been seeing just tries to make crypto operate more and more like traditional finance. And who does it keep out? Those early adopters, those of you in the room. So, policy. What we've seen is a lack of inclusion in the policy-making process. We're not being consulted. It's not because of a lack of trying. Most of you know I have been working to get Black people in the face of these regulators. Some of you have been coming to Washington. But let's be honest, the members of Congress, they want to talk about financial inclusion. They just want to have that conversation with wealthy executives. They're not interested in talking to us. And that's where we have to make it stop. Why not? Because that is not how they do things. They have a way of doing things, right? Even the Black Caucus, even progressive Democrats. Like, how do they do things? There's an agenda. The Black vote is important. They talk about our issues when it comes to voting, but they know we're gonna keep voting, right? So when it comes to crypto and the Black majority in crypto, they approach it the same way. Why come to us? They have us unlocked as a voting Black anyways, right? So when it comes to financial inclusion, they know they can't solve the issue because people say all the time, technology doesn't change things, people think change things. Government doesn't change things, people change things. Laws and policies and technology should empower people to make the change. But right now, the people who represent you do not want to talk to you about crypto. I'll give you an example. The first hearing for cryptocurrency was supposed to happen this past week. It was supposed to be the first hearing. The House Agriculture Committee was going to have it, right? And I was invited to testify. The day of the hearing, it got postponed because of votes. How is it the only hearing on financial inclusion gets postponed because of votes? Because I remember a Senate hearing on crypto that we had to wait 2 hours to begin because of votes, but it still occurred. But that said, I don't want to be critical because I appreciate the House Agricultural Committee for actually having the hearing, for actually taking on the goal of having the hearing. But my issue was, the way Congress works is whoever in the majority gets to invite the witnesses. The minority, in this case is the Republicans, only get one witness. So that means the Democrats can control Congress. They can have 20 witnesses. I was the Republican witness. It was the Republicans who used their one witness to bring me to the table. That's ridiculous. Now, the majority, the Democrats, did bring in a Black person and a Latina, two academics who hate crypto, who can really talk about why crypto is bad. And then they did have a company that actually will talk about crypto in a good way, and that was a white female CEO who is wonderful, love her. So what I likened it, it was like, that hearing was like you having a hearing about rap music. Is it good for families? And then you bring on a Black person and a Latino person who can say, it's terrible, it's killing families. And then the only person you bring from the industry is Eminem, right? Love Eminem, great rapper, but you don't bring him before you bring us, right? So they don't get to bring everybody who's already testified, who's been at multiple hearings before they go into their districts in Ohio, in New Mexico, in Texas, to find the Black and Latino people who are building on it, especially when it's a conversation about inclusion. Again, I credit the House Agriculture Committee for even wanting to have the discussion. But isn't it sad that it took this long to actually have this discussion? I'm going to provide a framework of some of the policy issues that are playing out that affects you. But before I do, I want to tell you, none of this is going to change unless those of you in the room run for office. None of this is going to change unless those of you in the room find somebody in your community to run for office. Washington is run by a generation of people who are used to doing things a certain way. It doesn't matter if they're black, white, or Latino, they're still used to doing it a certain way. And those of you in this room are looking to do things differently. Until we elect new people to the table, that's not going to happen. And that means, I'm going to say something very controversial. That means you have to primary incumbents. That means the good Democrats we love, that are so great, you have to decide if 10 terms is enough, if 20 years is enough. Because if you want your voices heard, they have proven that that is not where they want to be. And so we can be loyal as much as we want, and loyalty will get you somewhere. It just won't get your voices heard. Controversial, but right now, this is the 21st century. We're at an inflection point. We are leading an industry, and our voices are not heard. Washington is creating policies for an industry, and you are not at the table. Here's why it's bad. Right now, Gary Gensler, the SEC commissioner, sees all cryptocurrencies as securities. Do you know what a security is? It's something that will land you in jail. Gary Gensler thinks NFTs look like securities. That means those of you in the room can be building NFTs that 2 years from now, it will be retroactive. You will get an SEC fine, and you will go to jail for building it because you distributed it. It may sound crazy, but right after the merge, for the Ethereum folks in the room, right after the merge, Gary Gensler said, this new, more energy efficient Ethereum looks like a security to me. So we need to take a look at it as a security. Right now, the IRS looks at cryptos as property. So that's why you have to pay your taxes. The CFTC looks at cryptos as commodities, right? And they've declared that Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin are commodities based on their rules. The SEC says, they all look like securities. And securities laws are something that large companies have a lot of attorneys for. They have a huge budget to actually go to court when securities issues come into play. Startup founders, do you? Do you have an accountant? Do you have an attorney? Do you have a budget for that? This type of regulation is coming. I may sound alarmist, but it's coming. Just this week, there was a decision made. There was a lawsuit filed against a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. You guys are building DAOs. You guys are using DAOs. The details are a little inside baseball, but it refers to people who voted on governance of a DAO, right? People who actually voted, right? So now, the implication is that DAOs would be looked at just as LLCs. And the participants in a DAO, especially voting members, will actually have a legal burden. Look it up, just announced. Mind-blowing. As I close, I want to highlight the most egregious regulatory policy So last year, infrastructure law. Most people did not realize for Biden to pay for the infrastructure law, in the pay for section is how do you pay for the bill? So Biden's people said, we're going to use crypto to pay for the bill, $28 billion if I remember correctly. So crypto paid for that infrastructure law. So how do you get to $28 billion? Right? The pathway to do that was to expand the definition of broker. Right? So a broker is Gemini, Kraken, the big exchanges. So if you expand that definition to software and hardware developers, miners and stakers, then you have a larger body that have a regulatory compliance, that have a legal and financial burden that you could get to 28 billion. Who are the software and hardware developers? They're the startup founders, innovators in the space. Who are the miners and stakers? That's you all. So these policies, right, that you're not a part of, for the first time in history, you're getting hit real hard, real quick. The large companies, they have large attorneys and funds to just withstand this. You don't. We are on a trajectory to make it impossible for ownership to continue as we've seen it. We came to this space because of decentralization, diminished barriers of entry. You can build, you can innovate. But while you were building, the people you elected to represent you are creating policies, some unknowingly, some it's just how we do things, that are having effects on basic things that you do. NFTs, DAOs, being a software developer. So, and just to be clear, the software developer law that has a compliance burden on software and hardware developers, it became law. We're still fighting it, the Blockchain Association and others. Do you know what Treasury Secretary Yellen said when challenged as to this is an undue burden to entrepreneurs and startups? I'm quoting now. Essentially, the response was, we have no intention of targeting them now, but we reserve the right to do so later. So as long as you're small and you're not making money, you're good. Don't become profitable because the law exists that at any point, pull it out of the packet. So, right now, you can't afford to just be innovators. You have to follow the regulatory policies. Each of you have a local representative, whether it be your member of your congressperson or your senator or your mayor or your governor, because Colorado just announced that anybody in Colorado could pay their taxes with cryptocurrency. So you need to make these people work for you, because these laws and these policies have tremendous effect on you, but you can stop the train. For the first time, Black and Latino communities lead national adoption of crypto, but we are the majority in the world, and these people get to ignore us at their peril. So apologies for scaring you, but I hope I have. I hope I've prompted some of you to think you want to run for office. You want to get your kids to run for office, because we need to vote a lot of people out. Politics because, oh my God, this person has been so good to us. That's wonderful. Send them a card. Send them flowers, but don't give them a congressional seat. That is not how you think, people. These people have to be working for you, working for our communities. On that note, thank you for your time.